Okay, let's call this meeting to order. Could I have a roll call, please?
Mr. McKenna?
Here.
Mr. Diakopoulos?
Present.
Mr. Stepanovich? Here. Mr. Dice?
Here.
Mr. Olszewski?
Here.
Mayor Sinan?
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Mr. Nestico, do we have any unlisted amendments this evening?
There may be two, and I'll address them now, and council can make a decision on how to proceed. I would ask that we amend item 13A. When we get to item 13A, the fee ordinance, we'll have some discussion on that. If we are going to move forward with item 13A, it would be a motion to advertise the fee ordinance. We did discuss this back in December on the December 4th meeting, but we realized today that we never actually got the advertisement placed. So if there is discussion to move the fee ordinance forward,
Okay.
the only other item would be potentially to add, or I guess it would be to add an item 13E, which would be for the demolition of 2150 Carolina Street, which is listed under discussion 9A. So there may need to be a of 13E to approve that emergency demolition. Those would be the only unlisted amendments for this evening.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. All right, thank you. Brings us to our consent calendar items. Are there any questions or concerns about the consent calendar items? Okay, hearing none, can I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve the consent calendar items?
Second the motion?
Thank you, Mac and Carl. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the consent calendar items are approved, unanimous. Mr. Nestico, did the mayor leave any comments?
I do have a brief mayor's report here. I'll pull that up right now. AARP Tax Prep Services. Appointments are required in advance. Contact the phone number listed below. If there is no answer, please leave a message. There is no walk-up service that will be accepted. This is taking place at the Murraysville Community Center, 3091 Carson Avenue. You can see the dates listed there on the left, February 21st, the 28th, March 14 and 28, and also April 11th. Additionally, Murraysville Recreation it was scheduled for tomorrow. They've rescheduled that for the following Wednesday, January 29th at Townsend Park. You can meet at the gazebo in the upper parking lot at 2 p.m. You can join the rec department for a fun 2 to 3 mile hike over the winter. Some slopes and may require stepping over fallen trees, so please dress appropriately for the terrain and the weather. The phone number is listed below, or you can visit the MurraysvillePARecreation.com site for more information. That is all for the mayor's report for this evening.
Okay, any comments on behalf of yourself?
Date regarding our Public Works Department, thanking them for their efforts with all of the winter weather. We've had 24 Public Works call-outs this winter, of which 16 of 21 days in June or so. So they've been called out almost every day this month. We've used over 3,000 tons of rock salt. That is roughly 60% of our supply. As everybody is aware, we've had some pretty mild winters in the last recent couple years. So it is, they are doing a heck of a job, but we are using a lot of salt this year, and we're hoping that we make it through without any issues. We see some other communities nearby that are struggling with their salt supplies. So we are in good shape. We did place an order for additional salt, but the crew has been working pretty tirelessly. it's required quite a few call-outs and just continual efforts on the streets. So just wanted to thank them for their efforts. They have been putting in a lot of time and into the community. So that's all for the report for this evening.
No, absolutely. Thank you for that, and absolutely a thanks to the Public Works and for everything they do. Any community input this evening? You don't have to get up, Georgia, whom is a resident. That brings us to liaison comments and committee reports. Jason?
Thanks, Dane. Everything's going well. They are interviewing a few new candidates for director, which we need. And also, we're going to need to fill some vacant board positions. I know there's at least 2 at this point. If we need to advertise for that, Mike, or if we did, and I hate to put you on the spot.
No, that's okay. We do have a resignation here for this evening for the library board. I know that we did advertise, and in fact, we may have placed an advertisement for both, but it wouldn't hurt to even amend the agenda item for this evening to include advertisement for the vacancy, just to be safe.
Okay. Other than that, all is well at the library.
The Parks and Recreation Foundation met on January 6th. There's continuing work on the fundraising and gifting policy. The particulars of disc golf are yet to come, so we're waiting for that. And there was a separate workshop session on the 13th, which was attended via Zoom. And that was the Parks and Recreation. Medic One met on the Thursday the 16th. There are 3,872 subscribers, which is a 27.8% rate of return. As far as calls, there were 1,176 ambulance calls, 84 wheelchair details. There is going to be a capital campaign once the subscription campaign is pretty well completed, with a 5-year goal of $1 million. There is going to be a requirement that each board member would be expected to contribute to the capital campaign. Okay. And there was a motion which was voted on and received unanimous approval for Medic One to join the Westmoreland County Chamber of Commerce for an annual rate of $330 or less. They weren't absolutely sure on that. Next meeting is February 20th.
Awesome, thank you. Matt?
Environmental Action Committee, nothing new. Our next meeting is January 28th.
The pension committee will meet on February 5th. We'll get the year-end summary for pension performance. So I think that's the same day of our next meeting, so I'll give an update then.
Perfect, thank you. Matt?
Yeah. Parks and Recreation, we did meet this past Tuesday. Obviously, Mike had said with the Hot Chocolate Hike is the next event going on January 22nd at 2 p.m. at Townsend, so please participate in that. We had some discussion around Sardis Playground is on the agenda for this year to redo the play areas and whatnot and some of the amenities that are there. So we're kind of working through what ideas are there and what to do with that. The natural playground. We did have a woman who, from PA, master naturalist, that she's going to start to volunteer to help with that natural play area that we have at MCP. So we'll be meeting with her here in the future. And we did have, Deb Wooleen was participated in the meeting from the Franklin Regional School Board. And we had a guest, Nick Subich, who is part of the foundation, and there was a lot of discussion around the first project that we're going to work with the foundation. He's done a really, really good job at being able to raise capital for projects that we're going to have in the park. So we're just really excited to work with them. It's a great thing for them to help fund a lot of these bigger projects that we'd like to add to the community. So thank you to both of them for their participation. That's it.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
And FDMSA meets on Thursday. So that brings us to our workshop items this evening, and we're going to begin with 9A, which is the emergency demolition on 2150 Carolina Street. So, Michael, you want to?
Yes. So pursuant to our, the Murraysville Code, Chapter 87, regarding demolition, there is a formal process that council must go through in order to approve a demolition in the community. However, in an emergency scenario, those procedures are somewhat waived, and council can ultimately order the demolition without going through the formal hearing process. For this particular property, I'll pull it up on the map just for you to get a visual. It is not for the home itself at 2150 Carolina Street, but rather the rear garage that you can see here. It was damaged a couple weeks ago by a fire, and now the condition is at an emergency situation. You can see right through the right into the garage. Designated as an emergency demolition scenario. And so because of that, I just wanted to advise council of that. And as we discussed, maybe amending the agenda to include item 13E, just to simply order the demolition of the property of the rear garage at this property location. We do believe that the property owner will take responsibility and ultimately demolish it themselves. However, in the event that they don't take action, the municipality can step forward pursuant to the code. We can demolish it and then file a lien against the property owner. So we just want to make sure that we're covering all bases so that the rear garage does come down to the ground as soon as possible. So out of an abundance of caution, and being that it's an emergency scenario, we're asking council to consider that action item 13E to authorize the emergency demo of the rear garage. I can certainly answer any questions.
Michael,
How long does it take to see if the owner does the demolition?
Well, there's no defined timeline. We did send 10 days, they would be in violation. There's a process to pursue enforcement against the owner, as we're familiar with other code matters. But they were given 10 days, a 10 days notice. So technically they are on the clock, but there's nothing that guarantees that they will actually take action. So again, the concept behind going to council and authorizing the emergency demolition is to provide a safeguard in the event that they don't follow through with the 10-day order.
Have they said that they would?
Yes, so they did indicate to our code officer that they would take action and demolish the property, the rear garage. But we have had a history with this property owner with sporadic compliance, we'll say. And so again, as a safeguard to make sure that the property does, the rear garage does come down, we want to make sure that we're covering all bases.
Michael, do we know what was the cause of the fire?
I don't believe that I know the cause of the fire. I'm sure that investigation is potentially ongoing, and that would be something I think the state police would investigate. So I don't know that.
Mike, is that a secondary property on the left side of that, or is that just like a mobile, some type of?
The one
like on the left side, is that another structure?
well, here you could see kind of what it looks like. This is
Yeah, like a
yeah. There's
refrigeration
just
system or something.
yeah. As you can see, there quite
It
a
would
few
be all of
items.
it comes down.
Yeah, the garage itself, where you can see all the siding, like that's the structure itself. I'm not quite sure what this is, and as you can see from the other, quite a few items that are stored at this location. So I don't know whether that is attached or unattached, but I guess whenever the demolition crew would get in there, they would have to make that determination and remove anything that's an unsafe condition. So, and this image is
Mike,
from
if they-
August of '07, so this is
If
what
they
it,
do the demolition, if the homeowner does the demolition there, who determines it's okay? Is that us that would ultimately?
yeah, the code
that
officer or the building
determination.
inspector would go out and
Make sure it's up to
review the
standard.
condition, the remaining condition after demolition, yep.
Okay.
Any other questions or concerns from council? Yeah, if code enforcement has declared it an emergency, it certainly would seem so. So at this point, I'd ask that somebody make a motion to add 13E to the agenda. That would be for the demolition occurring at 2150 Carolina Street, tax map number indicated for the rear garage due to code enforcement declaring it an emergency. And if somebody wants to say so moved, that's all you have to.
So moved.
Thanks, Carl. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Carl and Matt. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so 13E is officially on the agenda, and we'll handle it whenever we get there. So that brings us to 9B under our workshop items. Mr. Nestica, you want to get started? Thank you.
Yes, so this is the fee ordinance, which is adopted routinely when we have updates to the various fees within the municipality. Those fees could relate from anything from the police department fees all the way down to recreation fees for rentals and things like that. We talked about this in early December. The item was to be put out for advertisement, but ultimately we never did get that advertisement placed. So we're coming back not to adopt, but rather to discuss and potentially advertise again. If you recall some of the discussion in December, the update to the fee ordinance revolves the cost for the police blood work testing that has to be done. That's a $100 cost to the municipality, and that fee should be paid by the individual that receives the testing, similar to a breathalyzer. That fee is in the fee ordinance, but the blood testing is not, so we want to amend the ordinance and add that $100 fee into that ordinance. The other items would relate to field fees and rental fees in the municipality. And so what I did is I put together a small spreadsheet that I can pull up here to present to council that will address those other fees that updated. So I pulled up a spreadsheet here that shows it's small, so let me make this a little bit larger for everybody. And I can go down, but these are all the different facility pavilion and gazebos that we have in our parks. And you'll see as you go down, whether it's Townsend, Bear Hollow, Pedora, et cetera. The fees are currently right now in this first column where the typical fee is $50 for a resident, $100 for a non-resident, and that's kind of the same fee the whole way down. And you'll see that we're only asking, staff is asking to amend that fee and add an additional $25 for the resident cost and $50 for the non-resident cost. And this is simply a flat fee, a flat number of an increase just to cover some of the costs associated with the facility rentals. The facilities require cleanup and maintenance sporadically throughout the year. In bins and disposed of, things like that. So there is a little bit of a cost associated to the municipality to ensure that the rentals are going according to plan, also to check in and make sure no damages occurred, things like that. So down, I think it's a pretty straightforward fee adjustment, only $25 per resident, like I said, $50 per non-resident for each of the various park facilities. And these are, again, pavilions and gazebos. So that would be the fee adjustment for those. And then one other item, the MCP Grove, which is the grassy area that's on the right-hand side of the main entranceway to MCP. And again, it's well, actually, I don't even think that one is supposed to be adjusted because the fee it's showing here the same. So maybe I just accidentally duplicated that. So we could keep that one even intact because that one doesn't generate much of a rental, and I think it's just some picnic tables and things there. But the other ones, again, it's a static increase throughout, $25 for resident, $50 for non-resident. So staff would ask that council consider that amendment to the fee ordinance. The next item are the facilities, and we only have two facilities. Again, I'll enlarge the spreadsheet here. The community center and the clubhouse. Those are both of our indoor facilities. that we rent out. The only adjustment that staff is asking council to consider is to the alcohol fee, an increase of from $50 to $100 for both of those facilities. And then at the clubhouse, staff is asking council to consider increasing the fee from $25 an hour to $50 for residents, $40 to $75 for non-residents, and that is in line with the rental fees at the community center. So it kind of just puts those two facilities in line. Additionally, the clubhouse, as we know, just started to rent that facility out not too long ago. There has been quite a volume of rentals at the location. Folks find it a very nice place to rent out and have their events. It is a little bit difficult for us to manage some of the aspects of the rental process. Because it's an indoor facility, there's a little bit more cleanup that goes into it, so there's a little bit more oversight from staff. We certainly are not making money on our rentals by any stretch. I mean, it does cost us money to rent out the facilities. So this increase is just kind of helping to soften that a little bit. And then one other item would be consideration to eliminate the beyond 4-hour flat rate. So what that is at the community center, if you rent over 4 hours, it's just the flat rate that you see there, $250 or $375. And the reason staff is asking to eliminate that, the beyond 4-hour rate, is because it does have an impact on the rentals. First, if someone wants to rent out the facility for 6 or 7 hours, it does impact those other individuals that want to rent out that facility potentially later in the day. It also, we're still absorbing the cost, electric, heating, whatever it may be at that facility. And so what we find is a lot of times folks will book out the facility for more than they even need because it's included in the rental. So if we eliminate that flat rate amount, then it's going to keep our renters a little bit more honest when it comes time to book the facility. They're doing that online and they put in the amount of hours they want. So sometimes we're finding folks will put in quite a few hours, they're not using it, but just because it's all falling under that same fee structure. So that's, again, not a substantial increase. I think it's rather reasonable. These fees haven't been increased in quite some time. So that's what staff will be asking for the indoor rental facilities we have. And then the last, and I guess maybe now would be a good time to ask if there are any questions before I get into field fees. Any questions about either the pavilion rentals or even the indoor rentals and the fee structure proposed by staff? I think that, as best I could tell, it's been at least 12 years since these fees have been modified. Now, the clubhouse is different because that's a new facility, but the community center and the pavilion fees have been, I think, at least 12 years.
Okay.
And Michael, what I notice is, and I think you referenced it, for these facilities, utilities are part of the hourly rate, but yet for the pavilion fees, it's like a nominal $10, I guess, right?
That's right. Yeah, electric is the only thing offered at the pavilions,
Okay.
so they can get an electric permit, and we'll turn the electric on for them. As far as these facilities, yes, everything's included. They go in, and whether it's power, of course, the buildings are heated, so all the utilities that we're paying for kind of go into the overall cost there. But the bigger issue for the indoor facilities is the cleanup. The community center has a carpeted floor. The clubhouse there's quite a volume of rentals there, so sometimes we have to get over there in the middle of a day, clean it out, get it ready for the next individual that comes in, because the renters are supposed to clean the facility themselves, but we've definitely had times where the next group will come in and then it wasn't clean or clean enough as it should be, as we guarantee, and so then all of a sudden we have to take action either to refund folks or we have to send somebody over there to clean it up. So again, because we're not truly structured to handle a lot of rental, the rental process internally, it does become a little bit cumbersome for us. So that's part of the justification for a little bit of an increased cost to make up, for some of the efforts that we have to put into it.
So for those that leave it dirty or using a security deposit,
Yes, which doesn't always cover the cost of the cleanup. Typically it does, but as you can see here, the alcohol permit security deposit is different from the facility security deposit. And so sometimes there's a little bit of a nuance between which one to keep and why. And then, yes, there are many times, I say many, but more than a handful, where we've had to provide some form of a refund to the next renter because the individual before them didn't clean. And so not only do we have to go in and clean, but then it's at the expense of the next renter, and so the security deposit sometimes doesn't even cover that cost. But without doing a full, true analysis of what exactly our costs are, which we should be kind of working toward, and that's part of what staff is kind of challenged with right now. But until we get to that, we kind of wanted to just stabilize things, increase some of the alcohol permit fees, and eliminate the excess rental flat fee and things like that, just to.
Okay.
Any other questions about the facility rentals?
Not necessarily the facility rentals. I had just two other items. Just one under the 112-6 recreation fees. The second paragraph, it indicates that there will be an exemption for the Friends of Murraysville Parks, Murraysville Trail Alliance, Westmoreland Conservancy, and I would add Murraysville Parks and Recreation Foundation, which is not there. It's almost a grammatical situation, but I would add the foundation to that.
Okay. I don't think that would be problematic. The one thing I would want to make sure is that this is the correct ordinance to amend to add that, to add the foundation in there. So I think maybe we can do that. If for any reason this is not, there's another ordinance that needs to be amended, we can also bring that one to the table as well.
Okay.
So just out of an abundance of caution. Any other questions on the facility fees or if there are none, the other item to address would be the field fees. I'll pull that up here, and this will only give you a little bit of an idea of what we're looking at. So the field fees right now are currently listed in this column here. As you can see, whenever the fields are rented out, it goes in increments of, as you can see on the left there, 3, 4, 5, 6 months or less, and then there are different time slots. This isn't as descriptive as the next chart that I'll show you, but just so that you can kind of see the proposal here on the table, and I apologize, this bottom one isn't showing up properly. But the adjustment would be essentially a 20% increase. Now, at the outset, I know that sounds like a large percentage increase. Certainly anything going up 20%, should be examined. However, I'll pull up a separate chart to give a little bit of an idea of what happened in 2024 with field rental fees, and you'll see that while an increase of 20% may sound like a large amount, relative to the actual amount being charged, it's not too substantial, and so I'll try to provide some justification here. So this chart is maybe a little bit tricky to see, but you can, on the left-hand side, these are all the different groups that are renting out our park fields. And the majority of use comes from, as we expect, FRAA, baseball, Massa, soccer, and you can see the fields that they're using. These are the hours that were used in 2024. So for instance, FRAA used MC, Bear Hollow, Chambers, Kowalczyk, Pedora. They were the only entity that even used those ballparks last year. And as you go through this chart, you'll see with same thing with Massa using the MCP soccer fields. Some of these other groups had a few hours in Townsend Park, and then again down at the Ultimate Frisbee or soccer, they did have some use at Veterans and Beckwith. But the majority of the use comes from a couple different local community organizations. And certainly we want to work with those organizations, and we don't want to create difficulties for them in managing their their administration and their enrollment and things like that. But as you can see, if we use FRAA as an example, they used roughly 6,800 hours last year for spring and summer ball. That equated to a total of $13,000 in field fees. If it's broken down by an hourly cost, it's $1.91 an hour, so not too big of a cost there by an hourly standpoint. But what the important takeaway from this chart is, if I slide over to the right, just using that example, the 20% increase equates to, for FRA, spring and summer ball, now a $15,000 charge, a difference of $2,600. And so, again, 20% is a large percentage, but because the fees are so low to begin with, it's not as substantial of an increase when you use that example. And again, that's the highest cost of all the different users. If I break that out just a little bit further, I'll slide down here. So just to get an idea, and I don't want to pick on FRAA. We have certainly a great relationship with them. We want to continue to embrace that. They are a big user of the ball fields in the community. We want to continue to provide that amenity to them. But if we look at their spring enrollment as the example, using this same 2024 year, they had roughly 363 players enrolled as of February 27th last year. There were still a couple days of enrollment left when we were given those figures. The T-ball enrollment ended a week or so later. Increase was passed on to their registration numbers. That would be roughly a $7 increase per player, a little bit more than that. Again, I don't want to pick on them. I'm not trying to kind of highlight them in this example, but I think that provides a pretty good understanding that the increase of 20% as it relates to the individual players in an organization isn't so substantial that it should raise too many red flags. The idea behind increasing the fees, again, while the overall fees coming into the municipality, you can see in 2024, were around $38,000 for the entire year. That certainly does not make up for the cost of us maintaining those various fields. However, we recognize that we are providing amenity to our community. It creates a better sense of community. We want those organizations to flourish. And so obviously the full cost of maintaining those fields is not being passed on to the various organizations. But we have not addressed the fees in at least 15 years. I believe I went back 15 years the last time it was modified. And so, again, while we don't want to increase the fee to cover the full cost, we do think that maybe a little bit of an increase is warranted since it hasn't been done in roughly 15 years. And again, I don't think it's going to be such an increase to create an impact on those local organizations where it's going to be a setback to them. So, again, that's a lot of information to kind of take in, as you can see here in the spreadsheet. But I think the overall recommendation from staff is that the proposed increase would take it from around $38,000 to around $45,000 total revenue to the municipality to take care of the fields. That is a roughly $7,600 difference from year over year with that increase. But again, as it gets passed down to typically the baseball or probably soccer folks, I don't think it's too difficult of a pill to swallow for those groups, especially seeing that they haven't had fees increased in some time. So I'm certainly happy to answer any other questions about the potential, the proposed recommendation or the impact that it has on the municipal budget.
Michael, I think that the point to be made too is that, you know, if you look at, we haven't raised these fees in 12 years, whatever it be, the fees for those sports have increased without the fees that they're paying for facilities to increase. I'm sure there as well. I mean, I know I've seen it with my kids, so yeah.
Sure, and again, that makes sense. Again, we're not picking on those groups. The reality is costs go up, as we know, for everything from our daily lives to the cost of the municipal government and everything in between. So this is kind of no different. And again, it's, you know, there are reasons why their fees go up, and there's no doubt that they have additional costs that they have to absorb to run their organizations, and we don't want to make it any more difficult on them than we have to. But ultimately, you know, as you can see again from the chart, we are providing these fields primarily for those groups. We don't have a lot of other use coming into those facilities other than those local organizations, which is a good thing for our local organizations, but ultimately that's kind of why we're providing that amenity. We're providing it for them, and so again, to offset some of those costs, it is helpful for the municipality to bring in additional revenue when it, you know, when warranted. And I think after 15 years, there's probably a justification to increase a little bit. So,
Mr. Nesco, this is great detail. Appreciate this information. Are there any, for the next meeting, is there anything we can look at for expenses? This is revenue. What are our expenses?
sure. We could try to put something together just to give a little bit of an idea. I can tell you, I guess, anecdotally, just based on what I know, it will certainly outweigh the $38,000 in revenue. But I can talk to staff about putting some of that together. Public Works certainly puts in a lot of time and effort at the parks in conjunction with the supplies needed to maintain those the fields, and then the Parks and Rec Department as well. So I can probably pull something together just to give a little bit of an idea, even if down to the finest detail. We can at least give a rough idea of some of the costs to maintain the facilities.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, 2 of those organizations split the turf treatment plan with us.
Yeah, I think that there are some, they do, so it's not fully on the municipality to maintain the fields. We do have cooperation with them, and certainly that's appreciated as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Good. So with that, if there are no other questions,
It goes back to the community center, and it indicates here that the facility use of $5 will be charged to each member of the Marysville Senior Citizen Center. Is that for each meeting?
you know, I can't say that I know that answer offhand.
And actually, what I'm pointing to there is that if you're going to charge them $5 each, that's one thing, but then there's also the charge for the room itself. So are they being charged both? Just for clarification.
Yeah, I would have to look into that. I can't say that I know that answer offhand.
Because the seniors, they'll balk.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's going to be, this is for rental fees, which would be somebody having an event, hosting a party, things like that. So we wouldn't be adding any additional fees for the seniors. I think their rates separately, and that might be what you mentioned in the first fee.
Well, if that's the case, then that's fine.
Yeah, these fees are for like the facility rentals from, like I said, residents or non-residents that have parties or gatherings, things like that.
Okay. Any final questions or concerns? And I guess my next question would be, are we okay with advertising this so we can at least move at our next meeting if we want to? I think there's been some direction given. We really need to see the expenses at the next meeting just so we can show the community what we're dealing with here. But are there any objections to advertising it?
No.
Okay. So with that, can someone please make a motion to advertise ordinance number 1096-24, please?
I'd like to make a motion to advertise ordinance number 1096-24, the fee.
Second.
Thank you, Jason and Matt. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 13A is unanimous. Thank you, everybody. That, please.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance number 1097-25, specifying the rate of pension contributions with respect to the police pension plan for the two.
Perfunctory, but Mr. Nesco, would you like to explain a little bit?
Correct. Yeah, the pension contribution rate for the police department is set at 5% for the calendar year. That's been the same for the last number of years. That number is set by contract with the police CBA and also PA Act 600. So this is a pretty standard ordinance to adopt annually.
Any questions or concerns about the pension ordinance? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 13B is unanimous. Thank you. Next up, can I have a motion for 13C? And I would just note, this is very de minimis, but this would, 13C, include a saying thank you to Ms. Long and also advertising for a replacement. So can I have a
Make a motion to accept the resignation of Susan Long from the Murrysville Library Board, the term that expires December 31st, 2026, and to advertise and
say?
thank you.
Yep, thanks, Matt. I get a second, please? Eli, almost self-explanatory. Michael, anything to add?
No, as you have said, thanks Susan for her contributions to the library board. She did indicate that I think circumstances changed and that she regretfully had to resign, but she was willing to stay on long enough to help with the transition. So she's been working to kind of help the next folks in line with some of the leadership role that she carried. So thank you to Susan for her time on the library board.
Okay, awesome. Any other questions or concerns before we vote? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 13C is unanimous. That brings us to 13D. Can I have a motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion to appoint James Miller to the Murrysville Zoning Hearing Board. Unexpired term set to expire December 31st, 2028.
Second.
Thank you, Jason and Mac. Mr. Nestico, anything to add?
No, Attorney Miller works with Mongiovi and Son Enterprises as general counsel, and I think he came recommended zoning hearing board. We have been trying to fill this seat for some time. That board has been running with only 2 of 3 members, which has created its own set of complications. So it will help to have another individual appointed to that board to assist on the zoning matters. So look forward to having a full contingency of zoning hearing board members.
I can attest to Mr. Miller is one of my neighbors. I had talked to him about possibly looking at this board for the last year or so, so I know they really could use the help on that board, and I think he'd be a great addition. He's very knowledgeable in this type of stuff.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, 13D is unanimous. And that brings us to the added 13E. Can I have a motion for 13E, which would be the demolition on 2150 Carolina Street for the...
Make a motion to approve the demolition of the remaining burnt-out structure as discussed in the workshop on Carolina Street.
Yep, 2150 Carolina Street, yep.
Right there. Tax map number 49-16140-164.
Thank you, Carl and Eli. Again, we've had extensive discussions about this. Any final questions or concerns before we vote? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 13E is unanimous. Is there any old or new business this evening? Any executive session?
No executive session.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Let's go Matt and Jason. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Okay, sorry I was late.